All right, so the last dominant position we're going to work on is knee on belly. There's a couple different ways to play knee on belly. I'm going to show you kind of the two different philosophies behind it. It's going to completely be determined by the size of you, the size of your opponent, your balance level and stuff like that, and kind of just what style of jiu-jitsu you want to play, okay? So the two types that you commonly see are like the really heavy, nasty, you want to go below the belt or above the belt? Below?
Above.
Okay. Nasty, like really heavy knee on belly, and that's usually when we're going to get our shin really far across, so the middle of our shin is right on the gut. Sometimes this foot's going to be off the mat completely, hooking on the side of their hip. This leg is up, but I can focus all of my weight straight down into her belly and make this really heavy. And the less weight I put in these toes, the heavier it's going to be for her. You're almost always going to elicit this reaction out of people, so it's really strong because you can use that to attack arms and stuff. We'll do that stuff later, right? So knee pretty much all the way across, right? I can put the most weight down, and you'll find people get in that kind of position, and they'll grab onto the lapel, the leg, the belt, and they'll basically just pull and like bend this person around their shin with all their weight. And I've seen people tap from that for sure. So Big Josh used to do that. He was 450 pounds, and he used to do that to people. It was awful. But it's good if you're bigger than your opponent and you're trying to pin them down on the mat and buy yourself a little bit of time, okay? It's pretty good for submissions and stuff like that. The only issue with that position really is that it puts all of your base focused, sorry, where are you going? On their base. So if the more heavy I am on her, the more my base is basically committed to hers, right? If she grabs onto my knee or something and I'm trying to be really heavy and she just turns that way, you see I'm gonna fall pretty easily, okay? So in that respect, it's kind of it can be a tough position to maintain. And then there's this short, little more agile knee on belly that I like to play. I think it can be a little bit tighter. It's not nearly as heavy. I usually have my knee right around the belly button or maybe just past it, or sometimes on this inside hip. So a lot of this foot is exposed on the ground, right? Usually here I'll maybe control the lapel, but I almost always control inside this belt if it's available. I get my thumb in grip on the belt, grab it nice and tight, and I can really pull this hip and glue it to her other hip on the other side. Kind of pins her hips at least to my leg, and then I can help keep her shoulders in alignment with this grip here. The nice thing about this position is it's more of a mobility position. If Michelle tries to shrimp out or something from here, right, I have my base, like I can react to it, and like I'm probably not gonna fall over. Whereas if I'm really committed to her and I'm being real heavy and she shrimps, I might kind of fall and lose temporarily my balance, and she might have an opportunity to get her legs back in front or something like that. So there's pros and cons to both. I really want you guys to play around with kind of both different ways and see what feels best, but it might change within the moment. So you're gonna have to be constantly adjusting your knee position and stuff like that, okay? For some of these things, if the belt grip isn't there, maybe their belt fell off, this skirt right here, this little V in this skirt is also a really good grip. You get kind of the same thing going. You can also grab onto the pants in that little hole and use that same kind of anchor. So you can really pin people's hips and make it nasty, right? So getting to knee on belly, you can get there from passing, you can get there from all sorts of stuff, but we're just gonna go up from side control because that was one of the last things we were working on, right? So if I'm starting in side control, what I'm typically gonna do is reach down and grab onto this belt with my thumb in, right? And I'm gonna bring this elbow all the way across and try to like put a bunch of weight in my right elbow to pin her hips down. So I'm pulling this hip in towards me and I'm driving this elbow down towards the mat. And I usually like to get a thumb in grip on the lapel over here, somewhere behind the head, right? And then what I'm gonna look to do is bring my knee in front of my forearm, right? And replace my forearm with my knee. So I can just bring my weight up, my knee goes in front, right? And then I'm here, okay? The reason why I like this a lot is because when you build this frame across the hips, it blocks this knee from coming back in front, okay? So if she tries to bring this knee up, it's kind of stuck outside right now, and I can just keep that heavy, replace my knee, and she doesn't have any opportunity to bring that knee in. I see a lot of people like to go to knee on belly by popping up really quick, like this. But you can see, if she recognizes what I'm doing, if she recognizes what I'm doing, she's gonna bring her knee up, and I'm not gonna be able to really get there effectively. Okay. All right, so if I do systematically I can stop her from getting her guard back. Frame inside so she can't get that knee in. Now I just replace my forearm with my shin, and I'm in a good strong position, okay? All right, so once I'm here, I'm gonna start some attacks. Anytime you're in a dominant position, you always have to give up some element of control in order to attack. I guess that's the same with guards too. In order to create any kind of attack, you have to give up some kind of aspect of control. So I'm gonna have to give up on this belt grip, which is what I really need to keep her locked in this position. But I'm gonna keep this grip over here for right now. What I wanna do is pull out some fabric behind her back. We're gonna start with just a simple cross choke. Same thing you guys did from the mount a little while ago. I'm gonna open the lapel away from her back, bring my hand in, palm up, thumb behind the ear, pass this lapel into my hand, and then make sure I'm flexing my wrist so it's straight, right? And then I'm gonna drop my elbow down in the middle of her chest, okay? Now I wanna reach behind the head on this side. You could potentially go through all this stuff like we did, but it's kind of hard from this position to make that work. It's much easier from this position. I like to straighten my arm, lean over top of my knee, and then so I can look behind her head here. And I'm just gonna kind of karate chop the side of her neck, grab onto the jacket right here on the top, pinch my elbows together, and then I'm gonna come back and pull her towards my lap as I flex my wrists, okay? So the grip on this side is this tuft right here, right above the shoulder, kind of above the trap. Almost always gonna be there to grab onto, okay? You could potentially put your thumb in and stuff, but that's really difficult. So I've got one palm up, one palm down, grabbing the back of the jacket, bring my elbows together underneath the jawline, and then I'm pulling her towards my belly, and as I pull towards, flexing the wrists outwards like that, okay? So one more time, whole thing. Cross stroke should be pretty easy. Most of you guys just did it not long ago. So control the hips, bring this all the way across. And when I'm going here too, I'll typically drop all my weight into this arm to glue her hips down on the mat while I slide my shin up into place too. It's really heavy, feels good. Release, palm up, inside, look around the corner, grab that jacket behind the neck if you can. I don't want to grab out here, there's too much space right here. I want to be touching with every part of my hand, get that grip for the tap, okay? Now one thing we can help to finish our chokes too, the cross choke and the next choke we do, if I transfer my weight down to my left knee, if you're not getting this choke to work, if you drop down to your left knee, you can pull them onto the side and really get lots of power in this choke, okay? Because you can pull them really close to you, okay? Good, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. So let me just explain a couple things about grips on chokes. You guys come over here a little bit. All right, so there's 3 different ways to do cross chokes, and there's reasons for doing those cross chokes. They all have their time and place, but 2 of them do not have their time and place here. When I'm in knee on belly or mount, right, I wanna make sure typically most of the time, I'm doing a palm up, palm down choke, okay? Almost always it's gonna be a palm up, palm down, right? Unless you're maybe doing like the sneaky choke, then it's something like this, but that's not a 2-handed cross choke, that's just that's a lapel choke, it's a 1-arm choke. What I don't want to do is go palm up from the mount or from knee on belly, okay? You can do this from the guard, it'll work a lot better. The problem with this position is that you can't turn your wrists the right angle for them to make the right contact with the neck. But also what happens is this arm is underneath my other arm, so there's going to always be a huge gap here on this side of the neck that you can't close off, right? I can choke with the other side, but I can't really choke with both sides at the same time. And also you're using the flat part of your forearm because your wrists don't turn like all the way up when they're next to each other like that. It's almost impossible, right? Same thing is said for palm down, palm down. Now this will work better because your wrists are in better position. But again, there's always going to be a gap here because this arm is sitting on top of it. So there's a little gap of space between the neck where you're just not really going to get that. Now that can work from the guard, like a closed guard or something. That's fine. It's a little bit different. But from here, neither of those are going to work that great, okay? So when we're in knee on belly, 9 times out of 10, we're going to want to palm up, palm down choke, okay? So the next one we're going to do is using the lapel. This grip is called the Brabo grip. It's one of the more powerful control grips in jiu-jitsu, okay? She's helping me out a little bit, getting her jacket out, okay? Okay, so If I'm here in side control, I'd really prefer to set this up from side control first because you can make a much tighter position and everything just works a lot better. I'm just gonna reach back and untuck her lapel on the far side, okay? I like to reach up fairly close to the armpit here, and I'm gonna pull out all the slack, okay? Sometimes it helps, this is kind of a fine detail, but if you flip the lapel right there, sometimes it can help your grips in the end, but it's not 100% necessary, right? What I wanna do though, have to do is pull all the slack down out of this lapel, and as I'm pulling it down and keeping it tight, I'm punching it away from her body to pass it to my other hand, okay? And I wanna grab for now as close as I can to the back of her armpit, okay? Because then I can use a lot of cross-face pressure with my bicep and shoulder. I can pull in really tight and really start to smash and turn her jaw. But what happens is it makes this really tight and it's sideways inside her armpit, so it starts cutting off the blood circulation to her arm. It's really painful in the armpit. It's not really comfortable at all. But also, the more I pull back on this lapel, the more it pulls this shoulder down to the ground. So if she tries to like turn in or use an underhook or anything like that, it's really hard for her to do that, okay? I can basically buy myself my own underhook without having to use my arm. So now I've got one arm controlling that entire side of her body, and it's really powerful, okay? So you can do this after you set knee on belly, but it's way easier to do it now. And if you start using this grip now, your side control in general is just probably gonna go through the roof, your control. So again, I'm reaching back, starting my knee on belly, right? And once I get here, I'm gonna grab this lapel, lift up on it, pull it nice and tight, and I'm gonna put my hand in place, slide my hand down the lapel, and pass that grip to my other hand. Okay, it should be in just about the same place as your cross choke, so we're gonna do another cross choke, okay? Depending on how the fabric is laid out, you're just gonna reach behind there and grab the first thing you can grab. Right now, I'm gonna turn a little bit. Michelle, the lapel is right there, so I can just hook my fingers inside that lapel, and now I've got a really tight grip. Again, I come back to my cross choke. This is one of the tighter cross chokes you can do because your grips are really deep behind the head and it's really strong. And you'll see because I'm grabbing onto this one piece of fabric, it's very, very tight. Okay, there's no slack behind her neck, so there's not really much for her to do. There's lots of different ways we can pass this grip, so you can be pretty creative about it. But the idea for now is making sure it's tight in the armpit, right? So I'm pulling it down first, okay? Punching it through while it's tight, and then transferring the grip to the other hand, okay? Generally, if I'm controlling here too, I'm controlling the far hip with my elbow or my hand, and then I'm really pinching this back and just laying that shoulder pressure in to make it uncomfortable, okay? Knee on belly again. And as I get there, I'm pulling up, sliding this lapel into place, okay? Reaching back and grabbing whatever I can. So sometimes this little like bit of fabric is gonna be here, grab onto that, okay? All sorts of stuff is gonna be there, just grab onto the first thing you feel back there and finish your choke. And you'll notice it's probably a lot tighter, but again, you have to have a palm up, palm down grip for this one to work, okay? You guys need to see that again, or are you good? Good, let's do it, 1, 2, 3. All right, so one thing a lot of you guys probably notice is that sometimes it's really hard to get a lot of length on that lapel and stuff like that. How much slack is pulled out from behind the back is directly related to how much slack you can get from the front, okay? So when we're drilling stuff, our gis are all tucked in tight, our belts are all tight, everything's like perfect, and we're laying down and then we're trying to do these techniques, but like there's no slack. It's because everything's like you're laying on it and everything's behind your back. As you guys are sparring, I promise this is gonna get easier because she's gonna be like trying to get on her side and stuff. So she's gonna be lifting up her back and making it easier for me to do all this stuff, right? So that stuff will loosen up as you start to, you know, do it in real time and stuff like that. So don't worry about that so much because that problem will fix itself while you're sparring, right? So for the next one we're gonna do is, this is the actual Brabo choke. That was a Brabo cross choke. Brabo is a Portuguese term that basically means fierce, right? So I get up to knee on belly just like before. I pass my grip just like before, okay? A lot of times people are gonna start defending now because she knows that she's in deep trouble. This palm up grip is a dead giveaway that I'm going for a cross choke, right? So she's gonna put up her hand and start defending and stuff. She's gonna put up her hand and start defending and not letting me get over there and stuff like that, okay? So all I'm gonna do is pull this arm across. So I can grab onto her sleeve if I want, or I can just grab onto her elbow, okay? But my job is to pull this elbow across And then I want to tuck it down towards her chest because I want to make sure her arm goes in front of her neck, not up here in front of her face. So I'm pulling this down, and then I punch it down. I turn my palm down and punch it. And now I can just press my bicep right into that tricep. And if I want, I can even hug here and start to drop my weight down and finish the choke. But it's basically like a head and arm choke that we did, the arm triangle. I think it was last week. It's almost exactly the same concept, just using a different grip. Okay, so starting here, punching this grip, pulling it slack. I like to hold it in the armpit until I get up to knee on belly. I don't like to start sliding my grip down until I'm here, because this is really strong control on that shoulder. Now I'll slide this grip down, pass the grip to this hand, right? She starts to defend. If she's way out here, I might grab onto the sleeve here and just rip this thing across, right? And then I want to put my bicep behind her tricep, flex, and just squeeze everything down to finish the choke, okay? So this arm, again, is going down and across her neck. You'll see it should be right underneath her jawline. And then this grip is going to be choking on the other side. The last one. Then I'm here. Bring this arm across, tucking it down. You'll see too, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but some of this lapel is sliding. That's okay. It doesn't have to be like ultra tight the entire time. If it slides a little bit, that's fine. It just means your arm's in the right place. Tuck this down, and this one should come on pretty quick. It's really ugly choke because it hurts inside your shoulder. It hurts your shoulder to be pushed across like this, but it also chokes you pretty good. So it's a really nasty like combo of pain and choke that works pretty well. Cool. Any questions? Let's do it. 1, 2, 3. So some of you guys probably had noticed when you were on the bottom that a lot of the times you're tapping possibly more because of the pain of all this stuff, like in your shoulder and all that, instead of even the choke sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. So I want you guys to understand though that that's a byproduct of the person on top doing a really, really good job with their Brabo grip, okay? If I take this lapel and I turn it this way, so it's a straight line, and it goes into her armpit, right? And it's not, well now it's flat, but if I have this more straight, what happens is it doesn't buckle inside of the armpit anymore, so the choke is usually like really tight and that's all you feel. But because we're passing this with this lapel so flat, we're doing a good job of pulling this down and keeping it really straight as it goes through. It's really flat. It makes a huge wedge right there, right? And that means that I'm gonna have really strong control with my grip, right? It means it's really tight. It means I can control her upper body really well. But it also means that when I start to do this, that's gonna hurt like crazy, right? And sometimes they'll tap from that before you even choke. So if your partner's like, oh, it hurts more on my shoulder than in the choke itself, like in the armpit, I mean, that's probably a good compliment. It means you're doing a good job passing. It doesn't mean you're doing a bad job. It means you're probably doing a good job with your Brabo grip in general, and you'll have really high success with it down the road. Okay. All right, great job, everybody.